Okay, so welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm Erin Foley. I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs and the Dean of Students. So please, somebody give me an indicator that you can see my screen that shows slides. All right, I got one thumbs up and a nod, so I'll take that everybody can see screens. So I'm going to walk through about 14 slides today to talk about what fall term will look like and some of our COVID requirements. So please hold any questions until the end. I'll stop sharing and we'll address your questions. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to give a fall overview. We're going to talk about some exposure prevention measures. And I know you've heard about those since March, but I get a little bit different way of looking at things, so we'll talk about that. How campus will run during fall term, what we know, and caveat that things are likely to tweak as we figure out how to make the work for everybody. We'll talk about the COVID testing for students that's available in Klamath. Personal responsibilities and accountability, and the Stop the Spread pledge, which I sent out last week. So if that sounds like a plan, here we go. So as you know, classes begin on Monday. We moved that schedule up so that the goal is to have students finish with classes in person at Thanksgiving time. So when you go home for break, the majority of you will be able to stay and finish the term remotely. Some students will have practical exams that need to be done in person, can do so, and will have to return to campus in order to do that. But the majority of students will then be able to finish the fall term from home, not have to return after the Thanksgiving break. You should all be aware of what's happening in terms of classes being in person or remote. All labs are in person. Most 100 and 200 level courses are in person, whereas 300 and 400 and above classes are mostly remote. And I say mostly because if there's a lab component to a class, the lecture side may have been decided to also be in person, and that was a faculty decision. So be very careful that you know what class is offered in what manner. You should check the schedule of courses, to determine if it's in person or remote. But if it's in person, you need to make sure you know building and room number, and check in late Sunday, because unfortunately we're still making some adjustments to room assignments to maintain the capacity that we need as enrollments are still occurring. So we'll talk about some campus services being a combination of in-person and remote. Most of the student services will have in-person options. We'll talk about how to interact with those services shortly. If you're living on campus, hopefully you've already received several email messages from Mandy Clark. She's the Director of Housing about check-in that starts tomorrow and how things will operate both in housing and dining. Fall sports have been moved to a later schedule, so if you're a fall athlete, you are well aware of that. If you are just interested in supporting the athletic teams, those athletic schedules will be posted as soon as they're completed for the conference. All right, so let's talk about exposure prevention. I know since March you've been hearing this regularly, all the things you need to do to protect yourself and others. But I want to look at it from a little bit different perspective. I'm going to use the metaphor of Swiss cheese. So to set the stage, I'm going to play a video courtesy of the University of Michigan. It's short, so here it goes.
When it comes to COVID-19, no single protection is perfect. You cannot reduce your risk of infection to zero by wearing a mask, or washing your hands a lot, or staying 6 feet away from others. Think of each of them, though, as a slice of Swiss cheese. They're not perfect. They've got holes. But slices of Swiss cheese have holes in different spots. As you stack them, the holes become covered. It's the same with these layers. Wearing a mask, washing your hands, social distancing. As you stack up the layers, the more complete the protection becomes. As we start to engage with others, we all need to stack protections to keep ourselves and our communities safe.
All right, so I'm going to talk about each of these 5 layers of Swiss cheese, if you will, briefly. And then by the end, I'll argue that I think we have a 6th layer that we need to add to the pan. So we've been talking about this forever, right? How to cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze, or use a tissue that then you dispose of it properly. Face coverings is another way to cover your mouth, and we are requiring face coverings for everyone when they're on campus. So to assist with that, we are providing all faculty, staff, and students 2 of the Oregon Tech branded face coverings. Here's what it looks like. They're very nice. They're adjustable. They're machine washable. I encourage you to not put them in a dryer, but let them hang dry. Wash them regularly. We know that face coverings protect others, but there is some evidence that also protects yourself. So it should be noted that if you fail to wear a face covering while you're on campus as a student, that will be considered a violation of the Student Code of Conduct. And as a person that deals with student violations, you will get to interact with me on that. All right, so the second layer of Swiss cheese would be the physical distancing, maintaining that at least 6 feet of distance between you and another person. That's really critical. If you can do more than 6 feet, obviously more is better. We need to pay attention, especially in areas, hallways of the academic buildings, where students are often congregating, that we don't do that. So spread out. If you need to leave the area, if you're coming to class early, wait outside if you can. If the weather's nice, wait outside instead of staying in a hallway. When the public health authorities are evaluating potential exposures, the 2 things that they look at very closely is the amount of time that you've been with somebody, whether or not you're wearing a face covering, and if you've been able to maintain that 6 feet of distance. So these 2 layers of Swiss cheese for our protection are those critical, but we need to be diligent in following all of them. We've also been talking about washing your hands regularly with open water, 20 seconds, that 2 rounds of happy birthday to me or to you, however you want to sing it. And also using sanitizer if you don't have soap and water available. Please make sure that it's at least a 60% alcohol base or higher. It doesn't have to be 90%, 60% is sufficient. So the 4th layer would be our self-assessment. And this is probably one that you haven't heard about a lot because not everybody's doing it. We're asking faculty, students, and staff to stop and think every day, how do I feel? Do I feel like I'm well? If so, great, come to campus. If not, I want you to stay home. It's pretty standard for people to think, yeah, I'll push through it. By noon, I'll feel better. But we don't want you to do that. If you don't feel well, stay home. So students are being asked to use the Oregon Tech app on their mobile device. And there's a tile for the daily health screening. So you would get an email in the morning as a reminder. You would complete the daily health screening. It's a series of questions. At the end, you'll get a green pass if you do not have symptoms and you're able to come to campus. If you indicate symptoms, then we're asking you not to come to campus, and you will get a red pass with instructions to call student health. They will help determine whether or not you be tested, or if the symptoms may not be COVID related, but something else. So that daily health screening before you come to campus will be really important, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. All right, the final layer of Swiss cheese, at least as I've presented so far, is the keep it clean. So do your part to maintain cleanliness where you're at. We like to think of every space as kind of the gym, where if you're working out, it's habit that you wipe down equipment after you use it, or in some cases, you may want to wipe it down before you use it, not knowing if the prior user cleaned it. The same thing holds true around campus. So where you have an opportunity to wipe down your space, that might be a classroom or a lab, please do so. The more that we pitch in and maintain cleanliness of campus, the better. If you live on campus, that includes your residence hall room or your village apartment. So make sure you help us keep places clean. I'll talk more about classrooms in a minute. The point on this slide is there is a lot of signage going up around campus the next 2 days. Please make sure you don't become sign blind. Check out what the signs say. There may be some signs about how to interact in that particular space or office. So pay attention. We'll try to move them around, change them up, but please know what we're asking you to do. Hopefully they'll serve more as just a reminder. Okay, let's talk about how campus will operate starting next week. Classrooms and labs. Each classroom and lab has cleaning materials in them. Faculty will be asking students to play a part in keeping the space clean. Maybe the faculty will say, on your way in, to your space and wipe it down. In other areas, they may have somebody who's able to come to class prior and wipe down all the spaces. The faculty will provide instruction on how to maintain the classrooms, labs, so please follow their instructions. Faculty office hours will be mostly remote, so they will also instruct you during the first day or so how it will work. If you need to contact a faculty member, the best thing to do is to send an email. Access to offices will not be allowed because the hallways are too narrow, and oftentimes the faculty member's office themselves does not allow that 6 feet of distance if you're to sit with them in their office. So if they agree to meet with you in person, they may give you a different location than their office number. So pay attention, some of the smaller classrooms will be used for that face-to-face meeting. Tech Rec, which is the newly renovated fitness center, will be open. However, we will have to limit the number of people in the space. We also have specific cleaning protocols. So pay attention if you're going to use that space. There will be staff that will instruct the users to how to operate within that location. Campus dining. The marketplace is our main cafeteria on campus. We have to limit the number of people that are in the actual dining or the service area. So please be patient. Once you enter, there will be a direction, one direction through the marketplace. Pay attention. That way we don't have people crisscrossing and running into other people. So it's either a clockwise or counterclockwise flow. If you live on campus, dinner times will be assigned by your community, and that will be done to the housing staff. So that means when it's all possible that you will go to the dining dinner time at your assigned time. And if you miss the time, that doesn't mean you miss dinner. You come at the end of the dining shift. We're doing that so we can manage the flow of people and not have everybody show up at the same time and then have to wait for an extended period of time to get dinner. Student health is open for students for in-person visits as well as telecounseling that we use spring term and over the summer. So make an appointment when you go up to student health. Don't just walk in, they'll ask you to call. You'll be screened and have a temperature taken for entering. Appointments will be done that well students are seen in the morning, and anyone exhibiting symptoms or have other health issues will be seen in the afternoon. This will allow us to sufficiently clean the facility at the end of the afternoon in preparation for the next morning. The bookstore will also have limited capacity, so if you have to wait before you enter, please be patient. As well as the marketplace, it will have a traffic flow designated, so please follow the arrows. Things will be available, but please don't just wander through. Pay attention to the traffic flow. If you've ordered textbooks and need to pick them up, there will be a pickup window at the north end of the bookstore. Between the main entry of the bookstore and the auditorium lobby, there's a window. It will be signed so you can find your way very easily. The library will also have some limitations. I think their hours may be reduced, but they will also be very diligent in watching for students that congregate in those space. It's great to be in the library. It's great to study there. Again, we want students to maintain that 6 feet of distance between you and somebody else. So they have spaced out furniture to help with that. So please don't move the furniture or don't sit if it says don't here or has a red dot on it. In terms of hallways, we want students to think of hallways as roadways, meaning if you're walking down the hallway, you need to stay to the right. Just as you drive on the right side of the road, we want you to walk on the right side of the hallway. If the hallways aren't wide enough, you'll need to walk single file as well. Again, keeping that 6 feet of distance is really important for us. Stairwells, the only stairwells that will be one direction only are in the College Union. The north and south end will be one direction only, with the center staircase, which is the spiral staircase, being down only. So up on the two ends and down in the center. Bathrooms, we will have signs asking to limit occupancy of multi-stalled bathrooms to 2. So it will be a open the door, listeners look for the number of people. If there's already 2, then wait for somebody to leave. And then your bathrooms are often a very small confined space. And so we're trying to maintain that distancing, having fewer people at once. Elevators will be signed asking for single riders only. The exception would be if you are a family unit, meaning you and your roommate, then you could ride together. You should always have your face covering on, but otherwise it should be one person at a time. In common spaces around the academics or in the College Union, furniture has been moved to maintain that distancing. If there's a red dot on the cushion or the chair or a sign that says to sit there, please do not sit there. Also, please do not move the furniture, as we've intentionally placed it to maintain physical distancing. As I mentioned, campus offices, there may be a sign on the door as to what you need to do. So for example, there's a sign on my door, but there's blue tape. You're welcome to enter, but until I have an opportunity to put on my face covering, do not walk into my office. And that will be the case with lots of folks. The requirement is if we are working in our own private offices, we do not have to have a face covering on. So as I'm doing now, I'm in my office, nobody else is here. I'm obviously presenting, but I don't have a face covering on. So if you want to talk to me, great, just wait long enough so that I can put on a face covering. That way I'm protecting you, and hopefully you're already wearing face covering. So pay attention to those signs. If you are interested or already involved with a student club or program, we will be getting information out to the club officers and program staff about how operations will be for your units. We will want students to interact. Meetings can be through Zoom without a problem. Activities will be based on what type of activity, if inside, outside. So all those things are important for us to approve as you are planning. So watch for more information later this week or next week about clubs and programs. All right, so we are providing testing for students on campus. It started yesterday. You can see the dates and times. This runs through the second week of the term. So if you are interested in being tested, it is the nasal swab test, which means it will indicate whether you currently have COVID or not. It is not the antigen test, which tests whether or not you've had it at all. So the location is south of the College Union. There's a big, not big, but there's a pop tent that says Choose Well. That's a student health tent, and that's where the testing occurs. Results are often back in 3 to 5 days. They will get to you as well as to the Student Health Center. So if you're interested, it's voluntary and free. I would encourage you to go during the testing times earlier in the slot rather than later. I don't know what kind of interest there will be, but it will cut off whoever's in line at the 2 o'clock end time. Anybody else will not be able to get through. So if you want to be tested, I would suggest there by 1:30 at the latest. If you must isolate or quarantine and you're concerned about academic faculty members doing that, you need to let me know and I can inform them that you're out. I won't disclose the exact reason, but I will let them know that you will be out of class, and then it's on the family members to arrange for how you will get the missed work. If you live on campus and need to isolate or quarantine, we have rooms set aside. and then we will provide meals and anything else that you need while you're under isolation or quarantine. All right, so I mentioned the daily health screening. So the flowchart on the left asks you to do your screening daily through the app. If you're clear, you'll get the green pass and you can come to campus. If you get a red pass, then you need to kind of work your way through the flowchart, doing what it says you do. So the first would be to not come to campus and to contact student health. Okay, so that flowchart I'm sending out in an email later today. Will also be posted in restrooms around campus. So this is where we need you to do what's in the best interest of the community. And don't just lie on the health screen. Be accurate. If you have those symptoms, please do not go to campus. Complete it. Get a red pass. That lets us know kind of what's happening on campus as well. If you get a green pass, great. That green pass will last for the day. It expires at midnight. So the next day you'll have to read the screening questions to get a green pass for that day. All right, another feature on the app is a QR code scanning system. So you'll pull up the tile. When you go into a classroom, there will be a unique QR code for a classroom, lab, and other locations on campus. So when you go into that space, you scan in. You do not have to scan out, but when you scan into the next location, it will take you out of your previous location. So the purpose for this is that if we get information that somebody tested positive, then we can look back to see who's in that area and when, and then notify people appropriately. It will greatly assist our county health officials with contact tracing. So the QR codes will be posted on the wall near the entrances to classrooms, labs, and other locations. So be sure to scan in. All right, let's talk about the personal responsibility and accountability. So last week I sent out the Campus Compact and the pledge. I want to reiterate that we have a face covering requirement. That's from the point you get on campus. So when you exit your car, walking across campus, in classrooms, in other buildings, you need to have a face covering on. So the exception is if you're in the dining area and eating or drinking, then obviously you'll need to remove your face covering. If you do not wear a face covering, it will be reported to me, and as the Dean of Students, I manage all code of conduct violations. So I will be addressing anybody who's not following any of the COVID requirements and procedures. The next point is really important. Your actions are important while you're on campus, but equally important while you're off campus. So let me use myself as an example. I'm really good about wearing face covering when I'm on campus, but if I were to decide to attend a family gathering in the next day or so, and because it's family, everyone's a little more lax. People aren't wearing face coverings. People aren't maintaining that 6 feet of physical distancing. That's not a responsible decision on my part. Somebody could be asymptomatic and positive, and then a couple days later, I could have COVID. And I'm careful on campus, but there's still a chance that because I'm positive on campus, I could be exposing others. So a more responsible decision on my part would be to attend the family gathering, but to wear a face covering, maintain that 6 feet of social distancing, or not attend the family gathering at all. So our decisions need to be good decisions both on campus and off campus. The violations to the Student Conduct Code, if there's high frequency of violations, meaning same repeat behavior, we're not getting you to change your behavior as to what we are expecting, could lead to anything from a loss of privilege, meaning you can't be in a certain building, you can't be in the college union, that would be a loss of privilege, or as severe as a suspension or expulsion from the university. So bottom line, everyone, not just students, but students, faculty, and staff need to make good decisions all the time. We can't afford to become lax because our decisions today will have implications down the road. I believe that if we have a significant number of cases on campus, such that it would lead to us going all remote. It is likely that being all remote will continue for the rest of the academic year. So we need to do our part every single day so that we can continue to offer activities in person, classes in person the rest of the term, and ideally throughout the academic year. All right, so everybody received the Campus Compact and the Stop the Spread pledge in an email last week. If you have already signed the pledge, please do so. There will be another email going out today, so that if you haven't, you can sign it. I know that you've signed it because when you sign it, I copy in an email. So I have all those saved. So please sign the pledge. I firmly believe that we can be successful in our reopening in our fall term. I look at Corban University and Willamette University here in the state. They have been open three weeks now, maybe 4 at this point. They're on semesters, and they have been very successful. Last heard, neither campus had confirmed cases. Willamette was waiting on results for 3 presumptive cases. But those schools and I believe Oregon Tech are not like the big public schools that are making the national news about spikes and student parties. I don't think that's us. So if we all do what we need to do, we will not make the national news in a negative manner. All right, so sign the pledge today if you haven't already. So before I get to your questions, please keep reading the campus communication. Obviously, you've been reading because you're on this training session, so thank you. Continue to check these 2 web pages for information. And remember, this is a new way of operating for all of us, so please be patient. Please be tolerant if we have to change some way of doing things around campus. So be flexible. Let's be kind to one another, and let's be diligent in doing everything that we need to do day in and day out. All right, so let me stop sharing so that I can get to your questions. All right, so feel free to post questions